This is F.D. Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening.
Hello, this is Frank with F.D. Recovery, and you are listening to the Weekly Intention. Basically, what we do is we go week to week, pick a topic, and we talk about it. We talk about how it works in our recovery, so on and so forth. So last week was redemption. We'll do a recap on that. But this week's topic is don't quit, right? We'll dive into that, but before we do that, redemption. So redemption's pretty straightforward, right? I spoke a little bit about it last week. Redemption for me is like is a great reminder, right? I was talking to the guys in the rehab, and we're going back and forth, and making it clear it's not about guilt, right? When for some reason my brain always correlated redemption with some sort of guilt, right? I owed something, so I had to kind of be this, on this path of redeeming, right? And it's not necessarily about that. It's about just standing in the light of whatever you are trying to achieve and whatever you're trying to restore, right? And getting back to the whole, because for me and my journey of recovery, the reason why I like to have the constant reminder that I'm on the road of redemption is because I have an uncanny ability to forget where I come from, right? And let my ego take hold. And this is just my walk, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be yours, but for me, I can get down that path of I think I'm all that, and my shit don't stink, and I need to constantly put myself under God's watchful eye by allowing humility to come into my life and allow God to look at those ugly parts of myself that I'm trying to hide. And reality is just allow God to shine through, and then I can see what the hell I'm trying to hide from, right? At least my higher power kind of is all this all-knowing connection of information, right? So all I'm really doing is just struggling with myself when it comes down to it. But I like to walk this path of redemption and understand that I'm on redemption road, and because I like to forget very easily, and if I'm always in an active service mindset and I'm always giving back, what happens is my life becomes fuller, and so does the people around me, right? So it's very important that for me and my ego and my walk in humility in this road of redemption, I have to constantly remind myself, right? I have to give back. I owe a lot. And I don't mean owe as a guilt thing. And that's one thing I had to rephrase, is because we kept going back to that. It's like, no, it's just, do what works for you, right? But that's just my experience. That's what I try to pass on. It's just, share what works for you, but you got to actually be working it to see if it works. You can't just be talking out of the side of your neck. Work the stuff in your program, work these things in your program, these spiritual principles, and all of a sudden you have something to share, right? Because most of the time, every time I would try to come into recovery, I just do a bunch of lip service, and I never was really doing anything, right? I wasn't doing any of the hard work and the heavy lifting to get me to where I needed to be, which was sober, right? And this time around, it's a little different. I'm clean and sober, and have been for over 7 years, and that's a huge accomplishment coming from a no good junkie, right? And to be talking about recovery and just being so involved in my own walk and worried about people around me and trying to help other people around me is a huge shift, right? And giving back to this world, because I'm on the road of redemption. And for me, that's a positive light. It's not this guilt-ridden BS. So that being said, let's the topic of not quitting. Don't quit. That's going to be the the phrase or the saying of the week is "Don't quit." Right? I mean, what? I mean, think about it. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward meaning, right? Quit means to stop, cease, or leave a position. Um, yeah, leave, past tense, quit, blah, 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 quitted, and then it goes in the etymology of it. But basically to stop, right? Stop, cease, or leave a position permanently. Synonyms include resign, stop, cease, leave, abandon, or surrender. Ooh, I like that, surrender, right? The past tense is general quit or sometimes quitted. Quitted, right? The reason I wanted to bring up don't quit is because sometimes when we're on this walk of recovery, we want to quit a lot. For me, I gotta get into that mindset of, you know, of healing. And what happens when you try to heal, all the things come up that you've been kind of running from, and you're going to be faced with a lot of hard times. It's not going to be all good, right? There's going to be a lot of difficult times. There's going to be a lot of mistakes made, and during that time you got to find the wherewithal and the tenacity to push through, right? And um and the reason why things get so tough is because we've been running away from it for so long, right? And when we get back into this path of fixing our life, getting a job, fixing our relationships, trying to love ourselves, there's so many layers to it. There's just so much layers. And the more you peel back, the more you want to fucking quit. I was such a big fucking quitter, dude. Everything that I did was just pussyfooted, and I was just so afraid of accountability, and I was just so afraid to just fail or even attempt. I was just riddled with fear. And the only thing I knew how to do was use drugs, party, and just act out. And there was so many different phases in my life of different types of drugs or just different types of partying. And and I there was just the my my character was fake, my personality was fake, my ideas were fake. They were all mimicked from environment and survival tactics. And you know and when I got faced into the real world, all I ever wanted to do was quit. There was just so many hard things when I have to face the realities around me, whether it be child support, whether it be holding down a job, you know whether it just be a simple therapy session, or even just an AA NA meeting. Even just I got so isolated in my addiction that I didn't even know how to really talk to anybody. It was just so tough, right? And I know people that could relate to that because, well, the sense of isolation that we feel when we walk into the rooms is there's not I can't even I don't I going back to that place is just so dark. And I from where I am today and what I've achieved today and the progress I've made, I couldn't imagine going back. And it's just that quick too. As soon as I put in, I'm right back in that darkness. And everything that I tried to attempt, and with many of my other relapses, I couldn't do it. Whether it was just a life event, whether it was a death, whether it was just, man, even if it was just a hangnail or one hard thing that and one obstacle that showed up, I was just quitting. And I remember the relapse before my last one. No, yeah, yeah. Well, before my last relapse, basically, what happened was is I met my new probation officer, and she drove me up to in Grass Valley, or well, Auburn at the time. Um, uh, Grass Valley was the rehab I went to next, but she drove me up to Auburn, and I just remember connecting with this probation officer, which I've never done before in the past. And I remember her opening up. She had just lost her partner. person she was married to, and I just remember her opening up, and I remember her sobbing, and I remember us connecting in such a way that in the past I didn't connect with like that with anybody, but let alone law enforcement of any type. So I just remember something being shifted inside me, and I started looking at things a little bit differently. It just wasn't an instant shift, but something was chipping away at my spirit, right? And I remember getting dropped off, and I remember her just saying, "Hey, can I hug you?" And it was the first time I genuinely was okay with somebody hugging me, especially in that scenario, in that setting. Everything would have been off if that was the old me, or even a 3 month prior me before that. It would have been a no go. But something was shifting inside me, right? The human in me was starting to awaken. That spirit within me, that God lies within all, right, was starting to wake up. And I didn't quite know what it was, but I got curious enough to investigate that a little bit further. And it wasn't an easy task. It wasn't like that happened and everything changed. No, I had a relapse again. And unfortunately, that was a part of my story many times. And it doesn't have to be a part of yours, but it was a part of mine. And it's just a journey that I walked, right? But my last relapse, but it's like an onion, right? Everything's getting you closer to where you need to be and what you need to learn. So hopefully one day you can be free from this addiction. Yeah, it's just the hardest thing we're ever gonna battle, right? I've fought grown men. I've been in a lot of dangerous situations physically where I could have lost my life, and the most, the most difficult thing I've ever done is recovery. Having to lay down the fight and actually look at myself and then stop drugs and look and evaluate my soul, my spirit, my wrongs, make amends. All these things that we have to do on this path it's completely an upside down world than what I ever knew. And getting back to that realization of like, wow, this is the hardest thing that I've ever done. And once I got past and trudged through some of this stuff, and I just listened to the people that just said, stick with it, don't quit. Don't quit. That was just things I remember in my early recovery. It's just like, don't fucking quit, Frank. You've gotten so far. And there was many times that I wanted to quit. There was many times I wanted to throw in that towel for things that are really, when you look back at it, were inconsequential. But at that time, it was making me feel some big feelings, right? And I just didn't know how to navigate the world with these emotions and these feelings inside me. So the only thing I ever knew was to quit. It was to give up on myself. But something was happening inside me that wasn't allowing me to quit on myself this time around. Sorry. That made me, I don't know what that was, but it made me feel a little bit something inside right there, because there was a lot of, I just remember starting over again and wanting to quit so bad so many different times. And it does make me emotional thinking about it. And I just remember something was there. Something was with me, and I know what that is now. I didn't know what it was then, and that was God. So if you're thinking about quitting, please do not quit, because your life can completely change. I was in my eyes, especially now, once I've done a lot of self-work, I was the worst of the worst. And the person that I am today and the person that I used to be are completely different. And the life that I live today and the people and the experiences that I experience today are completely different. There's always room for improvement, and that's one thing that I'm always on, is just trying to be a better person. But if you're struggling out there and you're having a hard time, please do not quit, because in the end, when all this is said and done and you push past your limits and what you what your life has become and the limits that you've known, when you push past that, there's something beautiful on the other side. There's everything you want is on the other side of your fears, right? And please, do not quit. And that's going to be my motto for this week. And the intention that I'm going to push out is trying to find the wherewithal and the tenacity to just push forward, and the perseverance to just push forward. No matter what my brain says, no matter what my heart says, what does God say? Right? And trying to slow down my mind and slow down my spirit and connect with the the higher purpose of what's going on here, and start connecting with that, and the realization that you are worth something. And the moment you feel like you want to quit, you need to find that higher power and that higher purpose and that higher self within you to push you past that. Because there's times where you're just on E, and there's no human power or anything with inside you that could make you go to that next level. And you're going to need that. So you're going to have to find that higher power. And once you get to that point, I'll tell you that quitting's not an option. Not for me today. I do know that this misery is refunded, and I have to stay diligent, and I have to be on top of it. And that's why we do that road of redemption. It helps me stay centered in that. So if you feel like you want to quit, please push past that. I'm sorry, I was a little off during this podcast. I'm really tired, and that's just where it's at. That's all I got this week. I love you guys, and tune in next week. I'll pick a topic that's a little bit less doom and gloom than don't quit, right? I'll do a little bit more positive next time. But remember, if you guys are struggling, do not quit. Go to a meeting, call your sponsor, reach out, connect, and connect again. So please, guys. All right, I love you guys. The motto for this week is don't quit. All right, F.D. Recovery, we out. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to F.D. Recovery. A reminder, be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor. Get connected to local support groups. And for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.